my session will not be successful without going in this specific order. So in the first session, we talk about the MFA, which is touches on the identity. In the second session, we talk about network security. In the third session, we talk about the accessing from anywhere. And I'm building on top of that how we within AWS are building a data perimeter. What are the tools? What are the best practice? My name is Waleed Ibrahim, and I'm part of the AWS Professional Services as a senior security consultant. And so thank you, Ron. Let's dig deep. So what we are trying to achieve here, what I need your help to get once you get out of the session, what's to hear about, it's like, what is this data perimeter? When we talk about what is it, why we need it, how we built it, then we'll deep dive a bit on the how piece. We'll talk about the permission lifecycle. We'll spend the major amount of time setting this permission. Then we'll, if the time allows us, we'll talk about how to verify those permission and refine those permission. And the overall goal is to how to use this permission to build this data perimeter. So what is data perimeter, or how we at AWS define it? It's simply a set of controls, a set of guardrails, a set of policies that within our AWS environment that ensure three components that are interacting together are secure. So our trusted identities are accessing trusted resources, and they are coming from expected network. Know that we are not using the word trusted network because no network has trusted, as in the previous session. All are not considered as trusted. So what does it mean? We need to make sure that our resources that are within our AWS cloud are accessed from our trusted identity that are normally coming from our user base, and they are coming from our on-prem, coming from our trusted parties that we have iterated with them, from our other cloud providers like the Azure subscriptions or the Google projects. But make sure that any non-trusted environment doesn't have access to our environment. So in a nutshell, there are three parties here: trusted identities, and those are the principals or the subject that who's trying to access some object. We need to make sure that this is trusted. And this also includes the services that are act on our behalf. So if I have an application that this application is trying to access like a database, this application itself is treated the same way. It has its own identity and need to be coming from a trusted identity. And those identities need to access a trusted resource, and those are the resources that are owned by our AWS account or by the AWS services that are acting on our behalf. And again, they are coming from our expected network, and expected network, usually our AWS cloud, on-prem data centers, other cloud providers that we have a trust relationship with, or our federated users. Why we need this data perimeter? Yeah, I know that the team before, like the presenters, talk about the MFA and about the security and about the network, but the goal is to have like the journey of a least privilege, or to achieve this least privilege, which is granting the user. The goal for us is to grant the user and the system the minimum amount of privilege to complete their work. This, if you remember the old days when our developer and that we have that traditional fight between developer and security team, because developer need to innovate, and while they see the security team as like a blocker because they try to minimize their access. And when the other side, the security team is trying to, they are seeing the other picture, which is like dangerous action. We need to prevent dangerous action. We need to prevent, we need to have our attack surface minimized. So the goal is to keep both parties, the developer or the people who innovate in the business, like the developers, and keep the security team providing the minimum amount, so both parties works together. So how we define this perimeter? As we said, that there are three components here, and the identity, the resources, and the network. And because you can see, each one touch on the other two. So we need our trusted identities can access only our resources, and only trusted identities are allowed from our own network. When it comes to resources, we need to make that our resources are accessed by trusted identities. We need to make sure that those are accessing not from any network, not from public network, not from the Starbucks network or the public network. We just need to be accessed from our own defined expected network. And then the network itself, we need to make sure that the identities can access resources only that are coming from those expected network. So those are the three pieces or that our goal, try to achieve it. Now let's go for the how to do it. We do this by setting a permission or going through a permission policies. If you are familiar with the AWS, we go through the permission policies, and those are our key component that we are using to build this data perimeter. So what we normally do as part of this data perimeter is to set those permission policies, verify those permission policies, then refine those permission policies. And we'll spend like some more time or dig deeper onto the set piece here. Just a quick recap that any policy within AWS is like a form of a JSON format, and it has like 4 components. 3 are mandatory and 1 is optional. It's simply stating who is the principal, who is the subject that is trying to access some resources, and we need to define it in a way like it's our users, it's our services, it's our role. Those are the principal. And the action, which is like either allow or deny, nothing else. Does this subject allowed access or denied access? 2, a resource. A resource can be like a database, can be like a S3 bucket, like when we store our data. These are the resource that we are trying to access. Those are 3 mandatory items within any policy. The 4th item, which was like our key player here, is the condition, which simply saying that we allow only this permission or allow or run this policy or allow access only if this condition applies. If the user is coming from a specific network, if the user is part of a specific, if users, I know Eric will hate me for this one, our first presenter, but allow access only if MFA is enabled. All of those we can put via condition, which we'll dig deeper on in a bit. But okay, this is good to say. I need to have my data parameter, but how to implement it? What are the actual tools that I can use to implement this data parameter? And they can go through those 6 items: 2 for identity, 2 for resources, and 2 for network. Let's take like a 1 step back and what we normally do. So, or how we AWS see this. We provide our developer or our people who innovate within our team. We are practical team. We think practically, so we cannot just go ahead and tight permission on those developers, so they cannot, because they will not be able to innovate. So we will start with a broader set of AWS policies. Let's give the developers the freedom to do their work. Our product is not yet published. It's not yet public. They work within our own environment. So we are okay to start with a broader set of managed policies. Or let's give the user, for example, I work for security like more than 20 years, and I hate, like I'm one of those who hate to give developers admin, but let's assume that we don't know where to start. We don't know how the application will work. Let's start to give the admin, like give the developer a broader set of permission so he can innovate. Then next step is to right size or making it or customize those. Once the application is running and it accesses whatever it needs to access, let's customize using the policy generation and make tight this policy in order to, before we go live and we go public, so it can achieve this minimal access, or it can access as exactly as the amount of resource that we need. But so the first two on the left, like the explore AWS and right sizing, are the one for, because we don't know yet what our application will need as type of permission. But what if I'm no, Waleed, I know what I'm doing. I need to do it myself. In this case, also, we have some specific conditions that we can add, that you can add to your policies in order to achieve this data perimeter. And we'll touch on those. So the first two on the left and the middle there are some tools that we're going to discuss now, which is that can help us achieve this. and we're going to spend what are those tools, like mainly a free tool from AWS called IAM, Identity and Access Management Access Analyzer. So what simply Access Analyzer is doing, it just, let's take this example. I have an application. My developer wrote an application, and this application needs some permission. We provide him like a role or a policy that grant him everything, because let's say that we grant him the admin permission, and the application is now up and running, but it's not yet in production. We are just testing it. What we are normally do with the Access Analyzer, which is, by the way, is free, we're not paying anything for using it. It's simply specify this role that you provide to this application, and it's the IAM Access Analyzer will go through the logs that is used, and for the last 90 days, and go through all the logs and verify that what exact permission that this role was trying to achieve. We give it a broader set of permission for this role or for this policy, but in reality, it doesn't need all of this. So the IAM Access Analyzer will go through all the list of logs, request, then it will tell you, or it will provide you with a suggestion. You need this here. This is excessive permission that you don't need. This is too much for this role to access, because you provide it with admin, but it doesn't need this permission. You provide admin, admin role, which means that it can access, for example, now S3 packet, but we found that it doesn't need it, so this access need to be blocked in a way. So, and they do this like through those 4 steps. So we start with run your app or task with a specific permission or a specific role. Then go to this role and ask IAM Access Analyzer to analyze the usage of this role. IAM Access Analyzer will go to the logs and do its magic. Then it provides you with some suggestion that you can take and customize further if needed. So we start with, as I said, run your app, request a policy from the IAM Access Analyzer, which is like the policy. This policy that we are requesting is the new one that we are trying to create from the old one that has a broader permission. It will ask you a couple of questions about what are the original broader one that you used, how many days they need me to scan for the logs, and it's from 1 day to 90 days. I can go through the logs for the app that the app generated for like 90 days and check. And what are the exact log that I need to access? Does it work in one region or multiple regions? Once I provide those info, let's Access Analyzer do its magic, and it will say that here is the customized list of access, and it will tell you exactly where you need, where Mr. Waleed, I misinput on line 18 and line 26. I have just created those for you, but those item number 18, number 26, I need your help as an admin or as an administrator to add those or to customize those. Access Analyzer also will help you once you create a role and you ask Access Analyzer to analyze it. It will provide you first. It will go through the security of the policy. Does it have overly permissive permission for any role? Does it have, like, you put a role and you have access to all the resources in your network, in your account? It will just generate a warning for you that this is too much, this is too broad. From security point of view, you should not allow this. You are at the end are the owner, and you can accept the risk and move forward because your business needs it, or you can say, yes, I did this while I was not aware, or it was done by mistake, so you can go for it. And also it will analyze the language that is used for the JSON file format. Although there is like for the people who would like to do it on their own and write the JSON file, once it finds like it contains any error that prevents policy from functioning, it will just highlight it immediately. And it also provides some warning that is not security related, for like performance related, or you are giving a role that is accessing that may interact with something that is non-security. It will also provide this as a general warning, and it can also provide you suggestion. It suggests for you some statement that you can build on top of the role or that we are currently trying to analyze. So this is tool that we normally use to, for if we don't know what our app will do, what exact permission it needs, we start broad, then we go tighten the permission as needed. For the people who would like to do it themselves, and as I said, that let's go for the condition. And this will provide us like some conditions, like if resources is tagged with our those are list of condition or noteworthy condition that we normally add in order to achieve this perimeter. As you can see, one of them is like attribute-based access control, which I think it's our next session. We'll talk about attribute-based access control. One of also of the condition that we are using are the two in the bottom, which is like ensuring that the resources coming from our org ID and it's from a specific ARN, a specific Amazon resource name, or it's called via specific service. All of those are ones that we can use to achieve this, to add as part of our journey toward data perimeter. Just to highlight some examples here, we have like a user is trying to access a data packet or S3 packet, and because the user is coming from our own, we have put like a condition saying that it's coming from our own environment, it's allowed access. But for the non-corporate credential, because will not be denied access because of this condition that we have added here. Another example is like we'll put like what we call another policy that is called VPC policy, which is like on the edge of the network. It's simply say that if we have a non-corporate credential, as the one that's he mentioned here, is trying to access one of our services. Let's assume that we have a developer. He's using his own credential to on the virtual machine to access one of our resources. It will be denied access because you need to use our own credential, the credential that we provide to you as part of our business, not your personal ones. So this will prevent access or deny the access from non-corporate credential accessing either our resources or other resources. Sorry for that. And this is another example saying that because we have a corporate credential and we put this our resource org ID, it need to making sure that any corporate credential will be able to access our resources, while if it tries to access non-corporate credential, it will be denied access. And I will skip the others for the sake of the time. But all of those are like some example of the network that we can do. This one is talking about that if I'm accessing our network from our own corporate credential, from our own corporate network, it will be allowed. If I'm trying to access from a coffee shop, it will be denied access because it needs to come from our own CIDR or our own list of approved IPs or from our own network. Next, let's go for the verifying, and we'll touch in 1 minute or so what we need to do to verify the permission, or what are the best practices. We need to finding the list of public access or public access across our network and use access analyzer to minimize those. We need also to minimize using access analyzer also to minimize the number of what we call pass role, which you as a user are delegating some permission to your service or to your app. If you delegate admin permission to your app, the app on your behalf will be able to do anything, and at the end it's your name will appear in the log. So use access analyzer to check those and minimize this lumps. And access analyzer can generate like a list of reports, that can highlight all of those that are public access, that are pass-role access. It also will provide like what each service have been accessed and when it was accessed. So majority of the customer that I'm dealing with, they have some services that they enable for testing and they forgot about it. It occur for them money or costs. So to minimize that for the purpose of security and the attack surface on top of the cost, on top of minimizing the cost, let's disable or delete or not the services that we are not using. If we're not using a service, why we are paying for it and why we are having it in our environment. Let's go for restrict public access, which is block public access for our S3. S3 is our storage resource. By default, I think till last January, public access was allowed for all resources, but now by default it's blocked by the public access unless you need it. Use some conditions like the principal org ID that require all principals to access our resource to be from our own organization. Let's use also some conditions like restrict access to our specific principal or deny access to them based on specific principle. So you can allow everyone except one specific principal for that. In a nutshell, use the conditions in a way that can help us restrict those public access. Who's our player here? Who's our guru here? It's the IAM Access Analyzer. Just enable Access Analyzer into your environment. It will do its monitor, it will do its review, it will generate the report, and it's on you to just take, it will provide you with some suggestion, just take it and take the action and try to verify and build on top of that. When it comes to refine, within the console, and again, all of those are like free tools or free report that are coming within AWS. Check if you have a role or a permission that is not used, why we have it. Let's delete it. Let's minimize our attack surface. So can generate a report that will tell you what a role or what a permission was last used to access which service, and all of those based on this report, I can also refine or delete those unused tools.